What is up, everybody? We are live. It is 2024. We got our first college hoops show of the season. It's been a fun season so far. Lots of shake-up at the top. We saw a couple good games last night. Purdue almost blowing a big lead. We got almost 150 games today and 3 big slates as far as games go on DraftKings. We're still waiting for the contest to improve. Hopefully when NFL is done, that'll happen for us. We got 12 games to talk about today. I got to bring in my guy, Gav, first. Gav, what's going on this bright and early morning out there on the West Coast?
Yeah, it's freezing cold and still dark. But no, excited to break into this, first show of the season. I think it's a pretty good slate, even if we're going to be fighting in the fountain for the pennies that people throw in there.
Yeah, Kurt, contest sizes aren't there yet, but, you kind of know that with being in the EL streets all season. So what's going on with you, man?
Yeah, I'm used to it. At least we have – I just love when these slates, we have a lot of different ways to go. And, yeah, we have a very obvious chalk piece today. But, besides that, it feels pretty – besides him, I think you can go a lot of different ways, which is fun. Where I feel like usually early on we have 2 or 3 guys. It's like, okay, they're going to probably be – they should be at least 50+% owned. So I like that. And like I said, I'm used to the small prizes, so I'll just continue to deal with that and then just be grateful when I do get the big ones. That's what she said. That's what she said.
Yeah, looks like everything's filling early, so hopefully that helps. I know the 222 is already full, so we'll just dive into the games here since we got 12 of them to talk about. We'll start off with kind of a clunker as far as scoring goes. Mississippi State at South Carolina. Mississippi State 28th at Ken Pom. South Carolina 61st. He's got it Mississippi State 70-69, Gav. This looks to be a kind of a slower paced defensive battle. I know we're both on the under. What do you got here?
Yeah, kind of 2 teams. I don't even know if we really know what we have with them. Mississippi State's 11-2, but haven't played a Ken Pom top 50 team. Their best win is Northwestern on a neutral, and they've lost to Georgia Tech and Southern. So, after this game, they're going to play Tennessee, Bama, and Kentucky the next 3 games. So I think this is more of a data point gathering spot in terms of a side for Mississippi State. South Carolina also 0 top 50 wins, but, they did give a good account of themselves at Clemson on the road in a rivalry spot. I think, we took the under. I think my main thought process was, Mississippi State right now is 173rd in tempo. That'd be the second fastest of Chris Jan's entire career coaching in Division I. It was his first year at New Mexico State. So they kind of did the same thing last year where in non-con they were 159th in tempo, and then from December 22nd on they were 334th. So I think this could be a hell of a slog of a game with, one really good defensive team on the road. And, it could be ugly scoring-wise and for DFS.
Yeah, Mississippi State top 20 defense and South Carolina playing outside the top 300 in tempo. Mississippi State does get Tolu Smith back here, Kurt, after missing all of the non-con. They kind of eased him in a bye game earlier this week. He is 8K, though. Are you looking at anyone in DFS here? I know Cam Matthews has been playing well, but, man, on a 12-game slate, clicking anyone from this game seems kind of dirty, doesn't it?
It does. The only person I would even consider is Tolu. Just maybe he gets pushed and goes off. I know he played a really soft matchup, but, the guy is just insane. So if he what if he outscores PJ Hall and Baycott? I feel like most people are going to have one or the other. I'm not really good at projecting ownership and stuff, but I feel like a majority of lines are going to have one or the other. And what if Tolu Smith outscores him? Which is that crazy? I think not main team play by any means.
I think it might take fouls for Hall or Baycott, but they have been fouling, especially PJ Hall, as we all know. So, Gav, we got a pretty big price dip on Michi Johnson here. Any interest there or anywhere else for DFS?
With the floor that Michi gives you, he's always in play. The question of whether he's chalk, a mainline play, a GPP mixing comes down to game environment, and this being a pretty bad game environment, I'd more call him kind of a contrarian. It's not even really a spend up, below 7K, but he'll definitely be unique. He's at home. Mississippi State's no middle is going to force them to shoot from the perimeter. So this could be kind of a 6+, 3-point attempt a game for him. I say keep him in the pool. Definitely not building around him. If you fall on him last minute or a GPP line, I'd be all right with it.
Yeah, I kind of like that as far as the 3-pointers. I would take a peek at his 3-point prop, maybe on DraftKings, something like that. Let's move on here. Marquette at Seton Hall, really good game. Marquette up to 12th at KenPom. Seton Hall 72nd. I think they're a bit better than that. KenPom's got it Marquette 75-70. Yeah, pretty interesting spot here. We've seen Kadari, Richmond basically smash in every game this season that's been close. This one's projected to be close. What do you think?
Yeah, every game that's been close that he hasn't fouled in, he's pretty much smashed. So, yeah, Marquette's off the big Creighton home win, but 2 of their 3 losses have been on the road, at Wisconsin, at Providence. They didn't really look particularly great in either. They did beat Illinois early on in the season before they kind of gained their form. But, yeah, Seton Hall also off the relatively fluky road win at the Dunk, given the Bryce Hopkins injury. I think it's only the 5th time that Providence has lost at the Dunk in the last 3 years. But, theoretically, this matchup should set up well for Seton Hall. Their team has the highest near proximity shot rate in the country. They're going to try to attack the rim, and Marquette is obviously vulnerable with Oso, as kind of a smaller 5. That being said, Marquette also slammed Seton Hall in both matchups last year. By 21 and by 14. Seton Hall scored 53 and 69 in those games. A little bit different personnel on Seton Hall this year, but yeah, still probably, there's definitely some DFS targets to look at, but I don't think I'm going to really bet a side or a total here.
Yeah, I think, man, I like Seton Hall, but yeah, it's just a tough spot for them. Kadari Richmond, Kurt has been a nice contrarian spend pretty much all season, showing the ceiling when he adds those steals or he doesn't shoot 4 of 18 from the field. What do you think here with Seton Hall? I don't really think I want to go to the ancillary pieces like a Dre Davis and a Daiwusu Dawes. I just feel like on a big slate, those aren't really guys that I usually click. But so I think it's Kadari for me on the Seton Hall side. And then any thoughts on the 3 Marquette studs, Kolek, Oso, Cam Jones?
So as far as the game goes, if you want to piece from this game you're deciding, I would just go Kolek instead of Richmond. I trust him a lot more. But like you said, on the Seton Hall side, it's probably just Kadari. Alamir Dosh will shoot 30 times and miss every single one. He's the worst basketball player I've ever seen in my life. I had a question for you guys. When I was making my cash team today, Oso fit in it perfectly. Feels fine for cash, but I want to see what you guys thought about Oso and cash.
I feel like he's been decently volatile this year. That range is also good. We'll talk about a couple plays in that high 6K range, Gav.
That was the issue.
I'd honestly probably rather just play Cam Jones.
Yeah, so you got Jones there, you got Trevon Brazile there, you got Peyton Sanford. There's a lot of good plays in the.
There's a lot of volatile guys too. So that's why I was having a tough time with cash. But
no, I like Oso. I think Oso's safer than Cam Jones, just because Cam Jones is a bit more scoring reliant.
I thought Cam would be more GPP.
Yeah, I think so too. We did just get news come through. We'll talk about the game later. Chris Ledlam's out again for St. John's. So we'll talk about the impact when we get to that game. Fun. Let's move on to a game that's going to be pivotal on the slate. Oh, no, not that one yet. But let's go to Rutgers at Iowa. Rutgers 86 at KenPom, Iowa 55th. KenPom's got this Iowa 78-72. So 150-ish total here, Gav. We've seen big games from Cliff, and we've seen him foul, and we've seen him have basement games. Any thoughts on him and this game overall?
Yeah, sub 8K Cliff and a big pace up against this big Owen Freeman. That's a pretty good spot. Rutgers is just so up and down. They're off the close loss at Ohio State, but had to fight to the bone to beat Stonehill at home the game prior. So kind of hard to tell what version we're going to get of them to show up. Iowa, we know, much different animal at home. It's also kind of a low 3-point rate Iowa team, that I mentioned. 315th is just so weird to see. I don't know if they spread it out, a little bit more and start shooting from the perimeter, but yeah, pretty good spot. DFS wise, definitely some affordable pieces I think that are in play.
Yeah, Kurt, I think there's several pieces especially on the Iowa side. We saw Owen Freeman go off for a massive game last time out. He's under 7K. Tony Perkins has been solid. Like Iowa hasn't been a good team overall, but they've had 3 to 4 usable DFS pieces in pretty much every game, with Perkins, Freeman, Peyton Sanford being the big 3, I think. Any thoughts there? And then Big Cliff has been volatile. What do you think about him today?
I think it's like, so it helps that it's at home. I really think one of these Iowa guys get there, and I don't like picking on Rutgers defense, but like every team I build, I'm like conscious of like I really want to get, and mostly it's Freeman and Sanford. But like, I mean, Perkins is fine too. But I'm just personally, I want one of Sanford or Freeman, and Sanford or Freeman. If it kills me, it kills me. I know Rutgers D is really good. Like I said, they're at home, and then if you do want to run back, I don't mind Cliff, but there's just so many good plays that I feel like the other guys in his range have a higher probability of nuking than he does. I mean, he can obviously nuke, but like I feel like the other guys have a higher percentage of chance to nuke. So give me just one of those Iowa guys and just hope that I don't get bit in the ass from that. And then I'm Simpson, man. Like I still don't think he's high enough. He's just
we had Simpson in the core on, I guess it was Wednesday. Just went completely off. He's played 34 plus minutes, back-to-back games. Pretty much their go-to guy now, Gavin. That price at 6K might still be a bit light on him. I know that we don't usually build around the mid-range, but I think you could argue that he's still about 1,000 underpriced with his role. What do you think?
Yeah, it was kind of a unanimous Big Ten breakout guy who might have just taken him, a month plus to get his feet kind of under him. But if they're going to look to him as kind of the ball dominant offensive initiator for a team that's pretty devoid of any sort of, solo shot creation or, offensive initiation, then maybe it's Simpson. In that case, he's still underpriced. So 6K, like I would say definitely mainline worthy. Borderline could still be core at 6K, as crazy that is to say.
Yeah, I love Simpson here. Played him the other day. We have a question in chat about would you run back with Mawat Mag? No, I think it would be Simpson for me. And then, like these Iowa guys, I think it's tough to click one on like a main lineup, but the upside in the 6K range, I think is really nice for like a Sanford, Freeman, even Perkins. So kind of a sneaky good game here. I was not expecting that total to be 150 gap, but I guess it is an Iowa game. Let's move on to a game with a 160 total. UNC at Clemson, really fun game here. Clemson at home. UNC's up to 11th at KenPom. Clemson 23rd. KenPom's got it Clemson 80-79. We grabbed Clemson right when it opened at either +1 or -1. I think it's out to 3 or so now, Gav. Any game thoughts here?
Yeah, Clemson off the predictable loss, kind of at Miami, all-in effort on the road, ACC. Miami shot 11 of 24 from 3. They're also an elite dribble 3 team. And Clemson just has, a Brad Burnell underscreening team. They're going to allow teams to do that to them. Like, remember last year when Jarkel Joyner and Turk Smith absolutely flamethrowered Clemson's underscreen. So, like, this is an incredible spot for RJ Davis. Majeski mentioned it in his article, but kind of for different reasons. More has to do with, like, Clemson being susceptible in transition, but, like, the underscreening could be a RJ Davis 18 to 20-plus kind of field goal attempt game. I think he's a really interesting contrarian spend-up. I don't plan on being owned. Definitely would have him in the mix. Baycott as well, obviously, 8-3. You just, wish he got a little bit more usage. But, for the most part, if he's not fouling, he's getting there. Unless RJ and Ingram are just taking 40 shots between the two of them. So,
yeah, Baycott we've seen have more floor games this year than usual, Kurt. But in their big games, he's playing 32, 34, 35 minutes. And that price in the low 8K range is pretty nice. Baycott or Hall for you here, Kurt, if you had to pick one, and any other thoughts here?
It's who has the higher ceiling. If either doesn't foul, and the obvious answer is Hall. Like, I mean, it's crazy that it sounds as Baycott's in his like 8th year, but when Hall doesn't foul, he goes for 50. I mean, like in a close game, he doesn't foul, he's going for 50.
So my thought here is Hall, ever since the emergence of Shefflin,
Yeah.
I think his highest rebound number since like Thanksgiving is like 6. So he's got to score. It's like he can score a ton, and they're at home here. Gab, do you think that's impacting Hall's ceiling at all? Just because Shefflin's bringing down a dozen boards a game.
Yeah, it definitely is. And Baycott kind of has a similar thing with Harrison Ingram, who's a nationally ranked offensive rebounder next to him. So yeah, definitely caps their ceiling to an extent. So like if PJ doesn't score 20 actual points, he's not getting there unless he has like a 6 block game or something like that. The 4.2 fouls called per 40, don't love that either. But definitely matches up with him better. Being the kind of 5-out big against Baycott than I would say Baycott is underneath against PJ.
Yeah, I really like both guys. That both project well. I think they're two of the best studs of the slate here. And you might get, I think Baycott might go a little overlooked just because of the context of the slate. Do want to mention Chase Hunter has had a couple really good games in a row, kind of started the year off slow. Might have to do with PJ Hall having those foul games, but I do like him a bit. And this is a game that we do like overall. Any other plays in this game for you, Kurt? Seth Trimble's been coming on a bit lately, 3 straight games of 20-plus minutes down at 4K. We haven't really talked about many cheap plays on this slate. I don't think that the value's very good outside of a couple guys. So any interest in like a Trimble or a Cormac Ryan, Cadeau, anything like that?
I'm not like a big Cormac Ryan guy, but even when he was at Stanford, I just hate that guy. But I think Trimble's fine for the mini stacks. And one thing I do want to note is like PJ Hall has been fine not fouling in the first half. If you look at, I don't know if you can pull up his first half. He just doesn't foul. So, but then he gets in the second half. He's like, oh, I got all these fouls to use. I'm going to use them. And he uses them on dumb fouls. And it's like, bro, you have to stop. He'll like, oh my God, it's painful because I could have won back-to-back seats if he just didn't get 3 fouls in the first 5 minutes of the second half of one of the games. And it's like he knows how to avoid foul trouble, and he knows that his team's better with him on the floor, even if he has to sacrifice a couple layups. And he still comes out the second half and just fouls like a maniac, bro. So he does have the ability to not foul. Can he put 2 halves of that together? That is the question. I don't know.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Gav? And then thoughts on like a Trimble or a Ryan or anyone else besides the studs in this one?
Yeah, no, I don't have to add a whole lot more to PJ. The upside is there. He's got a foul and he's got to score. Simple. Trimble's definitely in the discussion. He looks to have kind of clearly cemented himself now as the 6th man, and Hubert's not just running the iron 5 like he has in years past. So Trimble is kind of in a no man's land range in terms of kind of being just above the Providence guys, being just below Menefield and Pierre. But I think he's still a pretty strong play, even on a 12 gamer in a good game environment. He's definitely not only in your GPP pool, I think potentially even mainline worthy if you fall on him as a last man in type.
Yeah, like if you're going stars and scrubs, I think Trimble is interesting back to back. You take 16 to 20 from him. So, all right, let's go to the Lotion game in the slate. We got Kentucky at Florida. Awesome game. 169 total here, Kurt. Kentucky 19th at KenPom, Florida 35th. KenPom's got a Kentucky 86-85. We took Florida on open. I'm not sure where it is now. I'm sure it's out to 3 or so. Gavin, let's get some game notes here.
Yeah, Florida's off 6 straight wins in a row, but you know what their best win during that streak was barely greasing out a double overtime game against that dead-ass Michigan team. Like, it ain't been the most impressive run. They're 0-3 versus the KP Top 50, and they're ranked 53rd on Torvik in Q1 and Q2 games. Kentucky's weirdly the best ATS team on the slate at 8-4. I think kind of the reason why I didn't bet it and you did is I just have the issues with kind of Florida giving Kentucky the game that they want. Florida's allowing transition at a top 5 rate in the country. And Man, Kentucky might have, I would think that they would have one of the more dangerous transition attacks, but I noted yesterday they're 360th in transition point per possession. I can't imagine they finish the season anywhere near that. So maybe
That
there's
is wild.
it's just insane to think about. So there might even be positive regression in that aspect. I don't know if it's what it has to do with, but that has to come up. We've, in terms of like lineups, we've seen kind of Riley Kugel move to more of the 6-man role. Florida's starting to look a lot like those San Francisco teams that Golden had, right? 2 ball handlers with Khalil Shabazz and Jamari Bouye. And now you have Zion Poland and Walter Clayton around one big, whether it's hand-locked in Samuel, whatever. So it's starting to look in a little more mold of Golden. So, definitely some DFS spots we're going to have to look at with a total just in the stars.
Yeah, Kurt, we got a 170 total here, highest on the slate by a good margin. 2 fast-paced teams, both in the top 25 in tempo. Where are you looking here for DFS? I think we've got 8 or 9 guys in play, honestly.
So with Kentucky, besides Trey Mitchell, I'm going to be straight up honest with you guys. I'm hoping you guys can give me a lean on someone else. Right now, I know like Dillingham, Reeves, and like those guys I just don't get them right. So I'm sticking more towards Mitchell and hoping Edwards has like a breakout game maybe. But on the Florida side, I would just want the 2 firecrackers like Kugel and Micah. Hope one goes off. Like Gav said, I feel like he's just starting to go more one big, but Calipari's like, I bet Calipari's like, please play 2 bigs. Please play 2 bigs. That way Calipari can run Trey Mitchell and like one of his big goofies. Not goofy. They're okay. But you just know Calipari's like, please give me a reason to run 2 bigs, baby. So I hope that does happen. I think it is definitely possible here, which is why I think Micah, he's definitely going to foul. Like, that's inevitable. He will foul. He will get himself in foul trouble, but I think he can do enough. I think he's a great GPP play. At Kugel, you got to get hot. But like we said, this is not main team plays. These are like if you're maxing, if you're in a 4 or 5. I like the upside of those guys in the high total. And then I feel like the safest guy is Mitchell for me.
Yeah, Kentucky, Gav, has been pretty tough to figure out just because the team is so deep, and arguably their 2 best players come off the bench in Shepard and Dillingham. I agree with Kurt. I think Mitchell's probably the best / safest play from this game. So talk to us about Kentucky, and then my note on Florida. The minutes have been a bit volatile lately, but just because of the opponents against the good teams and in the close games, we've seen Tyrese Samuel continually play 31, 32 plus minutes. So I think that he's the best play on Florida. What do you think?
Yeah, I personally think Samuel's the best play in this whole game. In 2 games versus Tier A competition, what do you think Trey Mitchell's shot percentage is on Ken Palm? This is against Kansas and Carolina.
What is it?
6.8%. 9 total shots in 72 minutes those games. You throw in the 3rd game to include A and B against Miami, he's got 17 shots in 106 minutes versus 3 top-tier teams. So that kind of worries me a little bit. I think Samuel has much better peripheral upside than Mitchell. Mitchell feels safe. He also feels like a total cuck play to me today, personally.
Kind of does.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be popular. He projects well pretty much everywhere. And I do think that there are paths for all these other Kentucky guys to beat him. Like your Reed Shepherds, your Reeves, your Dillinghams, they're great tournament plays. And then, hand locked in the 5Ks. He's back. He's going to start. 6.2 fouls per 40 is your concern there. Any last thoughts on this game, Kurt?
Hey, sometimes you got to have 1 or 2 cuck plays in your lineup. I always say that in your league. Like, you got to have 1 or 2 condom plays.
Yeah, no, I think
I'm scared now. I'm scared, but like, it's just, I mean, the $800 savings you get, because I want to have one of these Kentucky pieces. It's the $500 to $800 savings is just so nice. And I hate Tyrese Samuel, dude. He's having a great year. The guy's playing awesome. He probably crushes again today, but I'm just still not going to fade and lose money.
Antonio Reeves, 32.2% shots in Tier A games. So You know he's going to chuck. I think he's safer than Mitchell because
Mitchell.
I can bank 15 shots from him this game.
Yeah,
a lot more transition stuff too for Reese.
I think it was the Louisville game where I took his point prop under, and everyone else got in foul trouble, and he took like 12 shots in the first half. I was like, oh, we're dead here. All right, let's move on. I can't believe this game's on the slate. Georgia at Mizzou. Georgia 85th at Ken Pom, Mizzou 89th. DK, you don't have to make it a 12-game slate. You can leave games like this off. Ken Pom's got it Mizzou 74-71. Gavin, any thoughts here?
Oh, God. I mean, not really. Like, Georgia has the 7th longest win streak in the nation at 8. They also haven't played a top 100 team since November 19th. So basically been playing a bunch of chess clubs since then. Missouri's off the Central Arkansas win after losing at KU. They gave a decent account of themselves. But like they got hammered by Illinois on the neutral. This could be like the first get up. It's not even like how do you get up for Georgia? Like because they really haven't had a good home kind of raucous spot other than Wichita State, which isn't even really a rivalry. That's more the Kansas schools. So yeah, not a ton to add here in terms of like game notes. So we can just jump into the DFS stuff if there's anything that we want there.
Yeah, Kurt, Georgia runs a pretty deep rotation. Can't really play anyone with confidence and say that they're going to play 30 minutes. But on the Mizzou side, we've seen Sean East basically play a ton of minutes and be the usage leader there. I think he'd be my only interest in maybe this entire game. But I'll probably just fade it entirely. What do you think?
I'm going to have one share from this game, and it's going to be Dollar Store Bonzi Colson.
Who?
Who's that?
Dollar Store Bonzi Colson.
Who's that?
Mr. Noah Carter, baby.
Noah
I'll
Carter.
have one share in GPP. I'm just hoping that the shooting numbers are associated with that bum ankle. Maybe he's gotten a little healthier because he wasn't that bad of a shooter last year. And I think the fatty can get there.
Yeah, they did say that his minutes have been down because of the ankle. And
I was watching that game. I had him.
So.
It was like an afternoon slate. And I was like, damn it.
Yeah.
But, maybe he's gotten healthier. Maybe that's why he's been shooting bad. There's a chance it couldn't be. Chance he could just be missing every shot. But, yeah. So I'm going to have one share. Nothing crazy. Going to be probably surrounded by some safer plays just to get different.
Yeah, that's a good note, too. This we've had some pretty spread out slates on weekends. This one's not. We've got all 12 games tipping by, I think, 2 p.m. Eastern, Gav.
I like that.
So it's going to come fast and furious. We're going to get a bunch of news like we always do on Saturday, and that'll dovetail into our next game here, St. John's at Villanova. We've got some conflicting reports. Gav, I'll just read off what I have here. So John Rothstein says RJ will be available for today's game. Chris Ledlam is out. But then we heard from a St. John's beat reporter that says both RJ and Ledlam are question marks to play. So this is one of our noon Central games. So 1 p.m. Eastern lock. How would that news impact St. John's for you? It seems like Ledlam is less likely to play.
Well, if one of them misses, the other, should get a bump in minutes. I have no idea what's going on with Glenn Taylor. Is that going to be another DNP? Because if so, then like it brings Naheem Aline into like a GPP value leverage piece for some of your lineups comes into play. So. Yeah, I don't really know how you want to play a bunch of guys going to Villanova. That's not usually the spot that I'm trying to target on a 12-game slate. But, if injuries are going to – I think that both guys would have to miss for me to think about starting to play St. John's guys personally.
I don't know. I think I would play RJ if Ledlam's out. Like his rates have been great, and he's in that low 6K range that I kind of keep landing on. I don't know. I think he's
got a 30% shot rate or something like that in his limited time. Like it's pretty insane. He's just going.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Like we played Soriano last Saturday for when it was RJ's first game back, and you could just tell that Soriano's ceiling is going to be hurt by him being around. He's going to steal rebounds, and that's why you were playing 9K Soriano, is because he's basically guaranteed a double-double. Kurt, any thoughts there? And then we've seen Dennis Jenkins have back-to-back just flamethrower games.
Like you said, like with the RJ Lewis stuff, with Soriano, I would be more inclined to do it if it was a high-paced game, but it's going to be slow as piss. Like I said, you're going to need some of these absolute ceiling games. And I feel like the pace of this game will kind of cap his ceiling unless he gets a shit ton of blocks. So Alan Soriano, I'm sure he can have a solid game, but I want all nukes. RJ Lewis is fine for me. I don't want too much of this game. Maybe a piece. Eric Dixon. Here's one thing I'm not going to do. I'm not going to play Dixon and Trey Mitchell together. Two different teams, two different things, but I just feel like Gavin said, it's a little bit of a cut play. I don't mind a couple, but in the same price range, I think I want one or the other. I could see the other one kind of just letting down here. So yeah, that's my take from this game. Dixon is fine, but I don't want to play him with Mitchell. What's his cash?
Yeah, I think my interest in this game, Gav, would be RJ if Ledlum is out. Any thoughts on the Nova side? I feel like those ancillary pieces, we like them in like the mid 4K range, but like Hakeem Hart crushed, so he's up to 5'6". Longino just kind of feels whatever at 5'5". Bama's been pretty volatile. Armstrong at 3'9", I guess he could play, but he doesn't really give you much ceiling. Any thoughts on the Nova guys? St. John's defense has been much better the last couple weeks.
Yeah. It was hard when he was 1,000 cheaper. Now there's a decision to be made, and he's 400 less than like the 6K guys that are in play. So yeah, I'm probably out on all these Nova guys for a main line. I think if you're going to mix somebody in, I think you chase the minutes with Bamba and hope that he just gets hot. The peripherals haven't been great, which kind of doesn't get me super excited. I just think a pretty uninspiring DFS spot overall on a pretty big slate, even though his total's kind of creeping up a little bit. It's just weird. It's just weird. Like the Johnnies live on the offensive glass and forcing turnovers with their press. And that's two of the tenets that Nova, is elite at because of their pace. They don't allow offensive rebounds, and they don't allow turn the ball over, which doesn't allow teams to press and transition on them. So yeah, probably mostly out for me today.
Yeah, I think this is an RJ Lewis spot if Ledlum's out, and probably a pass if not. All right, let's go to the SEC. Auburn at Arkansas. Auburn 10th at KenPom. Arkansas 59th. KenPom's got an Auburn 81-76. We grabbed this Arkansas 5 when it opened. It's probably 2 or 3 right now. 158-ish total, Gav. Game thoughts here.
Yeah, Auburn off 6 straight wins. Last game they lost was their first road game of the year at App State. Not the most inspiring, but also not an easy place to play for, a power conference team. So Arkansas's off the 3 layup wins. After they lost to Oklahoma, I think Muss kind of finally realized, like, we are a guy short, at least a guy short. And so they burn Keon Menifield's red shirt. I heard it was academic ineligibility somewhere. I thought he was redshirting from the jump this year. So I think they burned his red shirt mid-year, which to me is contextually very much different than a TRO guy, someone coming back from injury. If you already spent half the year and you're burning his red shirt, he's going to have an integral role because L. Ellis is just going to remain in Muss jail until we see otherwise. I don't know what he did to piss Muss off, but he just can't do it. And if Khalif Battle, he's going to have to be on injury watch. If he misses, Menifield's already a lock, but yeah, he becomes an even better play. So yeah, you start with Menifield and you go from there.
Yeah, Kurt, is our first, I'd say, core play, borderline lock play.
It's not borderline.
The thing is, he'll be like 70. He won't be enough.
If he's 75% owned, that means he's 25% under owned. Just put it that way.
Yeah, and when plays like that fail, I'm like, okay, I don't care. I mean, I'm not going to not play him.
On a slate without much value, I think you just play him. I agree with Gav. Like if you're ripping off the red shirt, it's because he's going to have a big role. So outside of Metafield, though, we haven't seen these teams on slates in a while because they've been playing a bunch of bye games. I know that you're a Chennai Broom guy. Auburn's pretty frustrating with the rotations because Bruce Pearl is going to play 12 guys. So you got Broom and then the Frosh guard, Aiden Holloway, who I know you also like. And then we've seen the price come down on Trevon Brazil just because they haven't really played anyone. When we were playing him around Thanksgiving, he was up in the high 7Ks, though. Any thoughts on those three guys?
Yes, I mean, I'm very partial to Broom and Trayvon. They were in my winner. So, and then Aiden Holloway's best game of the season. He was also in my one where I should have won, but PJ Hall's a fucking idiot. So I am partial to these guys. Whereas before, on that slate, Broom those two were just locked for me. They're not locks anymore. But the upside there, and you can make a little mini stack like Minifield, Broom, Trayvon, and then just kind of just do that mini stack. But still, it's just one of a second, third, fourth build because like I said, the 8K range is loaded. What if he does only play 25 minutes? Insane upside, as do a lot of the guys in the 8Ks today, and you got to play a little bit more for him. The other guys will probably play more minutes. So that's my take. If I do it, I'm just going to play them all, play those three, move on. I'm not playing the Holloway game because I think he's a lot less likely to get pushed than Broom would. And then I'm not definitely not playing the mush roulette with all these other bums. Not happening.
Yeah, Gab, I think Brazil is the best non-Metafield play in this game. If there was a qualifier today, that would be a spot to use a Janai Broom, I think. Any thoughts on Brazil here? I know you're a Brazil guy.
Yeah, I like Brazil in the spot. I landed on him as a last man in for just an initial build that I did, and I was all right with it. Remember, he was hampered with injuries all throughout the early part of the year. Can he physically bang with Broom down low? He's probably not. He's definitely going to get out physical. But that being said, we really haven't seen much of the block or stock upside with him, and it's definitely there. Auburn's been much more. I've been much better at taking care of the ball this year, so maybe there's a little bit less of that. I'm all right with Brazil. I'm not in love with them. You're definitely mixing them in to a GPP field. Probably, I think Mark is capped by Metafield's presence. I mean, Metafield just went to the free throw line 17 times. Now plays a team that's 270th in defensive free throw rate. Auburn always fouls the shit out of you on the road. It's just too easy of a spot. And yeah, there's no way I'm playing any of these forwards on Arkansas. Now, what I will say is I think we'll see the lineup getting pared down more and more. It's kind of just what Muss does. He throws shit at the wall for the first 2.5 months of the season, and then kind of as conference play ramps up, we'll see 7-8 guys play maybe. So not now, maybe in a couple games when we see who actually makes it out of that meat grinder.
Yeah, we had a couple questions to chat about Dylan Cardwell at 4.2 and Jalen Graham at 3.9. I tend to agree with Gav. I want to see more before I use those guys. I think that they would be fine. You're just taking risks. They're not going to start.
Jalen Graham could play 3 minutes this game, literally.
Yeah. I think I like Cardwell more just because he's going to play 15 minutes. And if
and has upside for yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And he makes a good point in the chat. You're playing Trimble at that price, begging that he gets 15 to 20. Cardwell could I think Cardwell's got more ceiling potential. He's just
a great
riskier piece because he's not going to get the minutes that Seth Trimble will. But yeah, interesting. I probably won't touch any of the Arkansas forwards until February once we know what the hell Muss is doing there. Any last thoughts here, Gav?
Arkansas is not attacking the rim as much this year. I don't know if it's just because they have just a lack of downhill guys compared to what they had last year. They're 150th in rim frequency. So wow. I would usually say that Cardwell has more block upside on the old Arkansas teams. That would be top 25. But yeah, I get it. I wish that if the fields were much larger today, I would say that Cardwell's a little bit more in play, but you really don't have to get super crazy on this slate,
Yeah, there's no qualifier. I think those types of plays are better when we've got a queue. All right, let's move on to maybe the most important news spot of the slate. Providence at Creighton. Providence 46 to KenPom, Creighton 16th. KenPom's got it, Creighton 73-64. Obviously, the awful news of the week. Gav, Bryce Hopkins going down with the ACL. Just a devastating injury for this team that was playing really well. They had a big three, really, with Carter emerging as an All-American, Bryce Hopkins, and Josh Oduro, the up transfer. Thoughts on how that's going to impact the team here, and then game thoughts as well.
Yeah, Providence net plus 17 per 100 possessions better with Hopkins per Hoop Explorer. And this is also a matchup that he could have absolutely just blasted Creighton and Mason Miller, where he would have been a major problem. So, yeah, game notes wise, well, I guess that's obviously tough for them. We'll talk about how it kind of shakes the lineup up. But, most of Providence's defensive negative regression is coming at the rim, and that's not really Creighton's game. I think they're top 10 3-point rate in the nation. They're going to definitely spray it from deep. So it's also going to come down to kind of a weird note here, strength on strength. Like Providence has faced the second highest pick and roll rate defensively in the nation. They're the 11th best team efficiency wise. Creighton offense pick and roll, 37th frequency, 8th best point per possession offense wise. So that could be a lot of where it comes into play. Maybe Providence becomes more switchable without Hopkins 1 through 4 and dropping Oduro. So could be kind of a weird wrinkle. But yeah, without Hopkins, look, I talked to you about it before, but like Devin Carter, this situation is not all too different from KJ Simpson, who we just been shoving at 9K. And yeah, he played like shit against Arizona in a spot that they just got Chernobyl nuked at. But he still doesn't have his second highest usage guy. The peripherals are really strong. He racks up plenty of stocks. And I took his over 16.5 points. I think this could be like an 18 plus shot attempt game for Carter, especially if it gets up and down. I could see like the Creighton drop. Carter's going to have a lot of room to operate, coming off that screen. So we'll see. I think this is a really good spot for him.
Yeah, Kurt, we're going to see mega usage here for Devin Carter. It's going to be like Miles Powell stuff. Any thoughts on him here? And then I think we have to discuss with Hopkins out what that's going to do for the rest of the team, because I think this is where we're going to get our pretty sure value. I think one of Garway Dual or Corey Floyd is going to step into the starting five. The good thing is they're both the same price. So I think you can just kind of use that spot and use whoever they start. We saw Jaden Pierre not do anything last time out, so hopefully people are afraid to click him. But I think he's going to play. I mean, he could play 38 minutes here. So, yeah, I think this is a spot where we probably want at least one of the cheap guys. And then, like Gav said, this is going to be a mega usage spot for Devin Carter down the stretch.
On a slate with so many stars, like Devin Carter legit has one of the highest ceilings, probably like top 2 ceilings on this. I mean, we see a couple weeks ago, he had a terrible first half. And I was like, oh, nice. I faded Devin Carter, low first half. The dude finished with 50.
He went for 50, and I faded him.
Yeah. No way. So what do you have, like 43 fantasy points in the second half? Something ridiculous.
He had 17 in overtime.
I mean, the guy just can absolutely crush. I love the example comparing to KJ Simpson with TDS and Cody Williams out. It's really simple because like he'll go in and get boards too. Like he'll get blocks. Like he's not just like a point guard who's just gonna stay out in the perimeter. Dude, the dude's active as hell.
I think he's their leading rebounder.
Yeah,
with this injury, Gav, I think his counting stats are going to be like first team All-American level. Because he is just going to crush every single game. He's going to be 10K in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I love pairing it with one of the 3 cheap guys like Pierre, whoever starts between Dual and Floyd.
Yeah,
we got like Pierre sucked for us the other day, so I wouldn't be surprised if he just somehow has a career game today. That's just how life works. But obviously, I prefer just the 1K savings and the guy who starts the 3.
Yeah,
but it's a great game of target, and then you can run it back with whichever Creighton guy. Who all year it's just been Baylor for me. I'm not really messing with anybody else. But if you want to run back there, you don't need one necessarily. But if you do, like I said, another little three-man mini stack. I like the 3-man mini stacks in college. It's worked for me. It's not necessary because there are 8K and there's a lot of good 8K options, but there are some run backs for Creighton worth considering. I like Mason Miller too. I like Mason Miller for throwing in the GPP pool. I want to be higher on him in the field, whatever that is.
Yeah, Gav, Creighton. I'm a Trey Alexander guy. I played him one time all year. It's the only time he's been under 25 fantasy points.
Oh my god!
Season. Him and Shireman have just been awesome every game. Providence is really good defensively though, so I'm not going out of my way to play them here. I think I'm with Kurt. I think it's more of like a bring back, just because we're probably playing 2 Providence. So I want your thoughts on the Creighton studs, and then on Mason Miller, who's been playing minutes into the 30s. It's just when you're the 4th, 5th option on a team with mega usage guys, it's hard to really crush.
Yeah, friend of the show, Matt Kajeski, he projects Mason Miller well. I think he's a fine play. I think on a different slate without these Providence guys, he's a much better play. When you talk about the Creighton studs, like, Kalkbrenner is just going to be a constant GPP piece because the usage and the rebounding can be pretty sporadic game to game. I think Baylor's the safest amongst them. Just shot rate, rebounding, still chips in with a little bit of assists too. I think he's probably the safest route. But if you're really getting a 50, is it Trey Alexander? I think I lean Baylor over Trey Alexander in the spot. I don't think they're priority plays by any means. I think that they bring a really good floor for 8K plus pieces. Just given Providence is still going to run with them. Last year when Kim English lost Vic Bailey at George Mason, George Mason was the 76th fastest tempo from then on. They were 220 on the year. So they actually sped way up losing a guy, even though there's basically going to be 8 guys who have played for Providence, and one is something called Rich Barron. That sounds like, I don't know what that is, and one is Rafael Castro, who's only a spell at center. So there's basically 6 guys who are going to play the majority of minutes. I think, like, if you're making rules, I think it's at least 2 Providence. Frankly, I don't even mind 3 Providence. If that's Floyd Pierre Carter, if that's all 3 budget Providence guys, because you think that you're going to get 22 minutes plus, and one of the 3 cheap guards is going to be the piece that you have to have in order to cash anything with all the studs, I'd be fine with that too. I know we're spending a lot of this time on this game. We have 2 dog shit games coming up, so this is important. I just wanted to make sure that we know what we're doing construction-wise with this game.
Love it.
Yeah. All right, let's go to West Virginia at Houston. Another game that didn't really need to be on the slate, but we like Houston. They're number 1 at KenPom right now. West Virginia just got a bunch of guys back from the transfer debacle there. KenPom's got this Houston 77-54. When I saw last night, it was Houston minus 21.5. Gav, we'll go to you first here for game thoughts. First Big 12 game ever for Houston. They have kind of cruised through the non-con. They had 4 top, 40 or so games, and they pretty much handled everyone with ease except that A&M game a couple weeks ago. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, their Xavier game got a little bit dicier than you would have liked, but I think it more has to do with West Virginia. They're off the close loss at, I think it was the Cavs Arena, to Ohio State in overtime, and then had scored 91, albeit against Toledo the game before. So the trio of Raekwon Battle, Kurt Kriisa, and Noah Farrakhan are definitely injecting some life into that offense that, especially when he lost Jesse Edwards to the wrist for extended periods, was woof bad. The problem is that Battle, Kerr, and Farrakhan are all 3 guys that are not really true. I guess Kerr's kind of a catch and shoot guy, but all 3 guys want to put the ball on the deck. And the last thing you want to do against the Houston double and hard hedge is just take the air out of the ball and dribble. You have to skip around the perimeter and shoot over the top of them, and that's just not what West Virginia is going to do. So 54 team total for West Virginia. You can just pretty easily cross them out. I took the Battle under 15.5 points. If he takes 20 shots and scores 16 points and probably hits the foul line, because Houston can foul at times, so be it. But yeah, pretty rough DFS spot. I think it's just cross off West Virginia, and just about all the Houston starters are good GPP pieces.
Yeah, Kurt, pretty much the same deal with Houston over the last several years is when you think they're going to get pushed is when you can really play their starters because Samson's got no issue using the bench in blowouts. But when they get pushed is when you see guys like Roberts, Shed play 35 minutes. Probably the most, I won't say volatile team, but like most predictable team in close games versus blowouts. We got a 20-point spread. But this is their first ever Big 12 game. Thoughts on Houston here because their prices or their pieces are pretty cheap. We've got Emmanuel Sharp, who's leading them in usage, more of a scoring reliant guy at 6K. Juwan Roberts, who I know we all love, has been hurt, but he's back today at 6'3". And Jamal Shed at 7'1" is just going to absolutely cook Kirk Risa. So any thoughts on the Houston guys here? Their minutes upside, I guess, in their first Big 12 game.
I mean, the team total and the spread. I think I'm not betting either side here, but I think it'll kind of be one of the things where Houston pulls away late. So I don't think it's going to be. I don't think we get a lot of blowout run for like the bench guys, which tells me one of these Houston guys who are priced very nicely in a great matchup. One of them going to get there. I feel so, Steve, I want to apologize to you. I'm going to play your boy Juwan Roberts, and that usually means bad things for him. So I apologize to you. I apologize to that man. I apologize to his entire family for what's about to happen today in the game. Jamal Shed is probably the safest, but you're paying the difference. I think I'd rather take the stabs just for like points for value wise. I want to take the stabs on Sharp or Roberts for me. And I mean, Roberts could legit get, like Gav said, I mean, they want to drive the ball. They want to have the ball in their hands. Roberts can get a lot of stocks in that way. So give me Sharp or Roberts. And then if you do have the money, give me some Shed. Don't mind it. If you got the salary, maybe we get another random 3K guy and you have salary galore. But just those two, it's good. It's GPP plays. But spread tells me when I'm going to get there. Which one will it be?
Yeah, Gav, your thoughts on the Houston guys here. My note on Juwan Roberts, in their 4 quad 1 and 2 games, he scored 33, 29.5, 31.5, and 37.75 on DK. Has played 36, 31, 26, and 31 minutes in those 4 games.
Yeah, I mean, we are known Juwan Roberts clickers. You know, the worry that I have is, I mean, well, first of all, not having Jesse Edwards underneath. Oh my God! I mean, while he's in the game, he could butcher West Virginia. But you got a quad injury is not an injury I want to be messing around with a lot. That's easy chance for re-aggravation. I think Houston goes to Iowa State, if I'm not mistaken, their next game on Tuesday, which is a pretty quick turnaround. So if it does get out of hand, like you can see the hook, but that's why they're GPP guys. I think Sharp is the most interesting play in this game and is a really interesting Derek Simpson pivot. I expect him to be much less owned than Simpson at the same price. What I really wish was that both of those games were at the 11 p.m. slate so that Sharp could just be a free late swap, like leverage pivot. But it's not. So you're going to have to make a determination beforehand. But that's where he comes into play as a Simpson pivot.
Yeah, I like both Roberts and Sharp here. The concern is the blowout. All right, let's move on. We got TCU at Kansas. Good game here, 150.5 total, at least as of last night. TCU 33rd at Ken Pom, Kansas 15th at Ken Pom. He's got it KU 79-72, Gav. So team total up near 80 here for Kansas.
Yeah, you get a little strength of schedule difference here. Kansas has played the 76th best. TCU's played the 349th best. They just thrashed Commerce. They went 2-1 in the Diamond Head. But you know what you're going to get with TCU. They're second in near proximity rate. They're going to charge the rim, and they're going to run in transition. Kansas, 29th in near proximity defensive frequency. They're keeping the ball away from the basket, and 28th in near prox defensive percentage. When teams do get it there, they're not as efficient. TCU is hyper-reliant on turnovers and forcing that into transition, kind of like a St. John's. And Kansas doesn't really turn the ball over much, and they're at home. So great spot for Kansas. I think they could really blow the doors off TCU because I think TCU is pretty weak underneath. So, yeah, you got two of the probably safest DFS assets in the sport in this game, getting paced up at home. So they're of interest for sure.
Yeah, I think this is a good live betting game, Gab. Like if Kansas goes down early and you get them, under 5 or something like that, I really like that because I do agree. Even though I like TCU, they just haven't played anyone. I tried to play them and I tried to use them in that neutral Clemson game, and that was a mistake out of the gate. Kurt, for DFS, I think on the TCU side, it's our guy, Emmanuel Miller or Pass, probably. He's up there in the mid 7K range, plays a ton of minutes in their close games. And then Kansas got their 2 All-Americans in Dickinson and McCullough. We whiffed on Dickinson a couple games ago when McCullough went off. And then I know I played Soriano over Dickinson last Saturday, and that felt really bad, like the second that Kansas game started. Any thoughts on the DFS plays here?
For such a good total and stuff, I actually don't have much interest in any main teams. If they hit your stuff, if you're like maxing, it makes sense, but no one really stands out. I feel like everyone's priced pretty correctly. And like you said, TCU in the deep rotation. So it feels weird because it's pretty tight spread, 150 total, but I'm impartial to it. Nothing.
Yeah, I think Dickinson's the best spend on the slate, Gab. Any thoughts there? Him versus McCullough versus like PJ, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that he's the premier spin. I don't think it's anything groundbreaking. He's the most expensive guy on the slate. And you could probably easily pivot down to McCullough too, if you needed to for a late swap option. He still provides all the safety. Like the fact that both of them are fouling at like 2 and 2.1 fouls called per 40 is kind of what just keeps their floor so high. And
yeah,
I know you talk about like block percentage on Ken Palm and whatnot. I kind of think that's like where the puck was versus kind of the near proximity rate sounds to me more like where the puck's going to go type of thing and a little more predictive. I think he gets a blocks bump just with that, because like even Villanova has like the highest 3-point rate in the country and have like one of the worst block percentages. Like, how is that even possible when you're just chucking threes all game? So I think Dickinson gets kind of the bump
because Eric Dixon gets blocked at the rim all game.
Well, he's 6'7" and can't jump. Yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, so in terms of like TCU, oh man, on a different slate, Xavier Court could make sense. But he's priced kind of at that Cardwell range. He's going to get similar minutes. I don't know. I don't feel great about him. I think you're right in terms of Miller Pass. This is a terrible Jameer Nelson matchup. So that's it on the TCU side, and then just choose a Kansas stud and go.
Yeah, we do have a couple injuries on the TCU side. I forgot to mention Jacoby Coles and Chuck O'Bannon, but I think both are going to play. I just pulled up the PRAs here. Hunter Dickinson PRA today, 35.5, by the way.
Jesus Christ. We bet at 24.5 against Kentucky.
Against Kentucky,
like
yeah.
Oh, my God.
All right, we're just after the top of the hour. We have to do our own stuff here, so let's get to the last game here. It'll be a quick one, Virginia at NC State, another one that doesn't need to be on the slate. Virginia 48th at Ken Palm, NC State 77th. Ken Palm's got it, NC State 64-63. We haven't seen much of NC State on the slates this season, Gab. They just haven't really played anyone outside of the BYU and Tennessee games. And then Virginia's had kind of a weird season, they've gotten blown out in both of their road games. They lost to Memphis by 30, and they got the doors blown off them by Notre Dame last weekend. So,
and your Florida Gators lost to them. Think about that.
Probably not going to touch Virginia on the road until I see something in the betting market. Actually, they go to Wake Forest next Saturday, Gav, and Ken Palm's got that Wake -3. Let's put that in the back pocket. But any thoughts here? We'll keep it quick.
Yeah, no, worst total of the slate. NC State presses you, tries to turn you over into transition. Again, Virginia, similar to Nova, doesn't allow that because of their pace. Yeah, Virginia 362nd in Haslam's consistency metric, which is pretty wild to think about for a Tony Bennett team.
Yeah,
I wouldn't play anybody from this game with my worst enemy's money. You have to be 1,500 minimum underpriced for me to even consider you in this game on a 12 gamer. When one total is at 170.
Yeah, Kurt, this total's at 127. Any place here, or should we just go on to a wrap up? You're muted. We made it all show. We made it all goddamn show, Kurt.
Well, it was like thunderstorming earlier. I didn't want y'all to hear it. But full transparency, I did a full Stars and Scrubs build, and Michael O'Connell hit it for now. I could always pivot to someone else if news comes out, but it's really just get me 10 and just all my stars go off. But no one else from this game, and probably shouldn't even play him, to be honest. But
Michael O'Connell? Oh, God, Kurt. Just play one of the Providence guys.
Kurt, just
I know
click the X on the top. Just click the X on the top right of your screen.
All right, buddy. You played Watt Mag the other day, okay? I don't want to hear it from the peanut gallery, okay?
Yeah,
I was drunk on the golf course. You know, you wrong for me.
No, I had the Providence guys in there, and then I also have Minuteville. It's a full Stars and Scrubs, full.
Yeah, I will say
I get a couple 3-point looks against the pack line. All right.
It's the 2 p.m. game too. So what if stuff happens for the 1 o'clock game? It gives you a little bit of flexibility.
Yeah, he's played 26 and 22 minutes the last 2 games. He is 3,500 on the slate without that much value.
Another Stanford guy I used to hate, still do, but
yeah. All right, Kurt, we'll go to you for your last word of the slate. Anything that you want to bring up? Any slate context stuff like that?
There's so many good plays. You don't have to jam in all the obvious safe plays. Like I mentioned earlier, the good example was Mitchell and Dixon. I feel like it cuts you off. So just be conscious when you're building. There's so many good plays. You don't need to jam 5 chalk pieces. They're not going to be too much chalk, but enough to some similar lineups. Don't be afraid to get different. I know Gavin does a great job of that. I think Devin Carter's going to be a little lower owned. I was probably going to have about the field on him, but now I'm hiring it after the show. So yeah. Devin Carter, I'm going to make it the play of the day for me. Hopefully I'm not stealing that since you guys kind of pushed me into it. But that's the final notes.
All right, Gav, last thoughts on the slate, any slate context stuff, and then your play of the day.
I don't really have a ton more to add. I think the only thing that I'll mention is when contests aren't as big, if you have one guy in your lineup that's sub 10% and you're relatively chalky, you'll be fine. If that sub 10% guy hits, some lineups I see, I'm just you're playing basically what I would call 5 GPP plays, where you may only need 1 or 2 to win this thing. So don't get too crazy. Play the good plays and then get weird in 1 or 2 spots where you need.
Yeah, that's basically exactly what I was going to say. There's no qualifier today. The 222 is only 20 spots, so you don't have to get too crazy if you're not just playing the $12. I think that's it for us. The Providence spot, I think, is the biggest spot on the slate. Don't ignore those cheap guys because you're going to need them to play the studs. All right, we're gonna try to do this at least most Saturdays from here on out. Next Saturday, possibly not because I've got some plans, but we'll see. Oh, we have one more question before we sign off here. Best Kentucky play, Edwards. I think the best Kentucky play is Trey Mitchell. And then Gavin liked Antonio Reeves as well. But we're going to head out because we got to build our teams ourselves. We'll catch you next time. For Kurt, for Gav, I'm Steve Boynton. Later.